You ever have one of those moments where the universe just slips you a hint? Not a lightning bolt, not some screaming confrontation, just a quiet little breadcrumb that lands so softly, you almost step right over it. For me, it was a receipt. Yep, a 3-inch thermal paper strip from a cafe we'd never been to together. Nestled in the folds of her wallet between a nail salon punch card and a gift card she never intended to use on me. 2 lattes. Dessert for 2. That was it. No names, no confessions scribbled in lipstick, no lipstick stains either. Just 2 drinks and something sweet. Paid in cash. Dated last Thursday, 3:46 p.m. That's the thing about lies. They never announce themselves. They hide in the ordinary. So I tucked that little receipt back exactly where I found it. Like a fisherman letting a bite go just to see if the fish comes back hungrier. My name's Daniel, by the way. 38. I run a graphic design agency from the spare room of our home. Not exactly a spy, but not a fool either. My wife, Jessica, was the kind of woman who used to write me love notes on the backs of grocery lists. The kind of woman who once teared up watching me fix a broken lamp because she said it reminded her that I fix things instead of walking away. Now she wore perfume to go to Target and flinched when I touched her shoulder in the kitchen. She'd been distant lately, sure. But marriage has seasons, right? At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Until the latte incident. The very next day, I tested the waters. You ever try that new cafe on Parkside? Elm and Ivy. She didn't miss a beat. No. What? Just like that. No blink. No hesitation. The lie wore pearls and a ponytail and stirred pasta sauce like it had nothing to hide. Oh, just thought I saw your name on their loyalty board, I said casually, sipping my tea, watching her like a chess opponent. She laughed. Too fast, too bright. You're seeing things, honey. I smiled. Maybe. But I wasn't. I was seeing perfectly. That weekend, she said she was going out with her coworker Melissa. I nodded. Said nothing. Even helped her pick out the necklace. Then I drove to the cafe from the receipt. Sat outside in my car. Waited. She never showed. But guess who did? Tall guy. Tan coat. Aviators on a cloudy day. Sat at a corner table like he owned it. Ordered 2 lattes. Didn't touch either. Then she arrived. My wife. Laughing in that way she hasn't laughed with me since the spring before last. She slid into the booth across from him like she belonged there. Like they'd done this before. She leaned in close. He reached out and touched her wrist lightly. Familiar, intimate. Like he knew the exact shape of her trust. They split something chocolate. I didn't need to guess what it was. I'd seen the receipt, remember? I didn't storm in. Didn't confront her. Not because I was weak, but because I wanted to see it through. You don't interrupt a magician mid-act. You let the illusion play out, because that's when people show you who they really are. No, I let her finish her lie in peace. Let her kiss him goodbye behind the cafe. Let her drive home and smile at me like she hadn't just traded years for minutes. And I smiled back. Because now it was my turn. The next morning, she hummed while brushing her teeth. That was new. It wasn't just the sound that bothered me. It was the cheer. That unearned contentment that only comes from someone who thinks they've gotten away with something. She even kissed me on the cheek before heading off to yoga. Yoga, a class she'd complained about for months. Suddenly, she couldn't miss it. Enjoy your warrior pose, I called after her with a wink. She smiled like she had no idea I was loading sarcasm into every syllable. Like she thought I was still asleep at the wheel. You know what I did that afternoon? I started a journal. Not a dramatic, bleeding heart confession kind of journal. Just a record. Cold. Factual. Dates. Times. Details. Because when the moment came, and oh, I knew it was coming, I wasn't going to throw a tantrum. I was going to build a case. Think of it like gardening. Each lie she told was a little seed. I just kept watering. By the end of the week, I had entries like this. Wednesday, 5:52 p.m. Jessica's team dinner ends with her car parked outside a condo complex on Brody Street. Spotted through windshield. Man-shaped silhouette, broad shoulders, same tan coat. Left lights off inside until 7:16 p.m. Exited wearing a different scarf than she arrived with. That one's not hers. I played the part perfectly. I was the steady husband. The helper. The how was your day guy. Meanwhile, she told lies so polished they probably sparkled. You okay, babe? She asked one night, rubbing my arm. Of course, I replied. Why wouldn't I be? She hesitated, briefly, but nodded. Just checking. You've been quiet lately. Quiet, yes. Not clueless. I started noticing the patterns, the little shifts, the way she no longer corrected me when I got details wrong in stories. She used to tease me about those. The way she locked her phone even in the house, then acted like it was no big deal. The sudden obsession with protein smoothies and lighting candles during her me time. Once, I left a small thread from her favorite sweater on the edge of her rear passenger seat, just to test. She told me the next day she'd gone shopping alone. But the thread was gone. Vacuumed. Someone else had ridden shotgun, and she didn't want me knowing who. And then came the bathroom slip. I walked in while she was showering and saw it. The receipt. Another one. Same cafe. Same 2 lattes. Same dessert. Different day. She had left it folded inside a magazine, tucked under the sink, forgotten. It was almost poetic. Her lies were starting to decay right under her. When she came out of the shower, towel around her head, she looked surprised to see me sitting on the edge of the tub. "Hey," she said, casual as the moon. "Didn't hear you come in." "I was just admiring the reading material," I said, holding the receipt like a playing card. She blinked. Her poker face flickered, barely. "Oh, that. No idea how that got there. Might be from Melissa." "Of course," I nodded. "Melissa. Again." She caught the tone, but didn't comment. Just walked past me like the conversation had ended. And maybe it had, because I didn't need her story anymore. I had my own. By Saturday, I knew I'd reached a new phase of the betrayal. The comedy phase. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to scroll through furniture sales while Jessica folded laundry across from me. She held up a blouse, blue silk, never worn around me, and said, "Do you think this still fits right?" I looked up. "It looks great. Just like when you bought it last Thursday." She blinked. "Was it Thursday? I thought it was older than that." "No, I remember. Thursday was the same day you and Melissa had that little coffee date." She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. "You remembered the day?" she asked. "I remember all kinds of things," I said. Then I smiled. "Melissa's more of a tea person anyway, right?" Boom. There it was. A flicker of panic, tucked behind a fake laugh. Melissa didn't drink lattes. She was a decaf everything, oat milk, I'm trying to detox type of girl. I knew this because we'd hosted her baby shower 2 years ago, and she made sure we used caffeine-free punch in the sangria. Jessica used to roll her eyes about it. But suddenly, she's drinking double lattes with Melissa on weekday afternoons? Sure. And I'm Tom Hanks in Big. That night, I emailed myself a folder of screenshots. Text logs. GPS pings from her car. Yep, I planted a tracker. Turns out AutoZone carries justice now. A couple photos too. Blurry, but telling. One of her leaning into tan coat at a gas station. One of her at the cafe with the dessert fork halfway to his mouth. One of her, alone in the car afterward, eyes closed, lipstick smudged, smiling. Happy, just not with me. I hadn't told anyone yet. Not even my brother, who'd been suspicious of her ever since she brought a different guy to his birthday party and claimed it was a co-worker who needed a +1. That was 2 years ago. I didn't see it then. Now I could connect dots like a CIA analyst with a Red Bull addiction. She came home late Monday night. Claimed the gym had gone over. 2-hour workout. I asked. There was traffic. At 9:30 p.m., she walked right past me, dumped her purse on the counter, and said, "Daniel, are you trying to start something?" I just smiled. Nope, just making conversation. And then I left it there. Let her stew in her own defensiveness while I rinsed my mug and dried it with the towel she always left crumpled on the counter. She wanted a reaction, an explosion, but I wasn't giving her fireworks. I was building a fuse. Later that night, I stared at the ceiling while she slept beside me, peacefully, like someone who never expected to be caught. That was her fatal mistake. She thought I was still trying to save this, but I wasn't. I was preparing the exit. No rage, no mess, no drama. Just a nice, cold goodbye, served when she least expected it. By the time I started calling him Tan Coat, I had already learned his real name. Elliot Monroe. Real estate agent. Drives a charcoal Audi. Divorced. No kids. Likes French jazz, according to his Spotify. Uses bro, unironically in text messages. The kind of guy who wears a leather bracelet past the age of 35 and thinks it's a personality trait. I didn't find all that out because I'm obsessive. I found it out because the internet's free, and I was done playing the fool. Jessica met him every other Thursday. At first. Then every Tuesday. Then Saturdays for errands. It was always the same rhythm. She'd lie, he'd lean, and they'd disappear into the corners of town where they thought the world wasn't watching. Problem is, I was. Not from anger, not from desperation, just curiosity. You spend enough time being ignored in your own house, and you start to wonder what's more interesting than you. Now I knew. It was Elliot Monroe in a tan coat, who probably pronounced Merlot with an accent he didn't earn. The first time I saw them together in person was a Wednesday. I told Jessica I had a client meeting downtown. Instead, I drove 2 hours to the Art Museum Cafe near Riverwood where her GPS tracker had been pinging every other week. She walked in at 1:16 p.m., right on time. Casual dress, hair curled, too much perfume for a weekday. Tan coat was already seated, playing with the sleeve of his jacket like he couldn't wait to take it off. He stood when she arrived, touched her elbow, kissed her cheek. The kind of kiss reserved for someone you want, not someone you love. She smiled, but it wasn't her real smile. Not the one that used to reach her eyes when I'd surprise her with flowers or whisper something dumb in the middle of dinner just to hear her laugh. No, this was her dead smile. The one she used at dinner parties when pretending to like people. The one she used when her mom asked why we hadn't had kids yet. The smile that said, I don't feel this, but I'm playing along. They stayed an hour, talked a lot, touched more than necessary. Once, she leaned her head against his shoulder like she was tired. Or practiced. He kissed the top of her head. She smiled again, still dead. I didn't move from across the street. Just sat in my car, eating a lukewarm sandwich and realizing something strange. I didn't feel jealous. I felt bored. This was the guy? This was what she'd risked a marriage for? A man with frosted tips and the emotional depth of an airport lounge? It was sad, really. She wasn't chasing passion. She was chasing novelty. A new flavor of nothing. That night, she came home glowing. Said something about the book club running late. Even though the last time I checked, her club disbanded after the third meeting because nobody liked the books. She kissed my cheek like a polite stranger, poured herself a glass of wine, stared out the kitchen window, and sighed dramatically, like life had become so complicated. Long day, I asked. She looked back at me, caught off guard. Huh? Oh, yeah, just tired. I nodded. Book club was worth it, though. She blinked. What? You said that's where you were. Oh, right. Yeah. She smiled. Dead smile. The next day, I had coffee with Melissa. The real Melissa. It was easier than expected. I messaged her under the pretense of hiring her to consult on a campaign for my firm. We met at a neutral cafe 2 towns over. She wore no makeup and looked surprised to see me smiling. I thought this was work stuff, she said. I stirred my coffee slowly. It is. In a way. Okay. I leaned in. You and Jessica still close? She paused. We talk. Why? Because she says she's been seeing you every Thursday at Elm and Ivy. Melissa laughed. Loud and genuine. Daniel, I haven't been to Elm and Ivy since their lavender muffins gave me food poisoning last summer. I nodded. Thought so. Her smile faded. Is this about her? You tell me. Melissa hesitated. She looked like someone trying to decide if they were about to betray a friend or set someone free. Finally, she said, I didn't know details. But yeah, I've suspected for a while. Sorry, Dan. You didn't deserve that. I looked out the window. Deserve's a weird word. It's never about that. Does she know you know? No. She thinks I'm clueless. And that's the fun part. Melissa raised an eyebrow. Fun. I smiled. A real one. When I got home, I made dinner. Her favorite. Creamy garlic chicken with the good rice. She was surprised. What's the occasion? Just thought I'd treat you. I said. You've been so busy lately. She gave me a quick look, like she wasn't sure if I was teasing her or tracking her. I poured her wine. We sat. She ate like nothing was wrong. That's when I knew the switch had flipped for me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was fascinated. She was a lie, told in real time. And I'd spent 15 years listening. But not anymore. Now, I was writing my own script. You learn a lot about a person when they start planning a party. What they care about. Who they tolerate. Who they want to impress. Jessica cared about optics. Which is why, one morning over coffee, she slid a Pinterest-themed notepad across the table and said, I'm thinking of throwing a dinner party. Just something casual. Casual. That's what she called it. Meanwhile, the notepad had color-coded sections for wine pairings, appetizer spacing, and flower arrangements broken down by fragrance strength. Who's on the guest list? I asked, sipping my tea like I hadn't been secretly collecting evidence of her affair in a Google Drive folder titled Taxes 2016. She shrugged. The usual. Melissa and Rob, the Holts, maybe Sarah and Dean. I nodded. What about Elliot? She froze. Just for a second. You could have missed it if you weren't trained. But I'd spent months studying her expressions like flashcards. Elliot? Why would I invite him? You talk about him sometimes. Thought he might make the cut. She forced a laugh. I don't talk about him. He's just a guy from work. A guy from work. Who touches your wrist like it's a secret and drinks lattes with you on Tuesdays. Right? I said, smiling. Must have been someone else. She added a few names to the list with perfect penmanship, like she was etching lies into stone. The party was scheduled for the following Friday. I offered to handle the invites, said I could take care of it through my work email list. Nice and efficient, I told her. She said that was sweet. I said nothing about the additional invites I sent out separately. That's the thing about being the quiet one. People never suspect you're capable of a good scheme. But let me tell you something. Silence is where the clever things grow. Friday night came fast. The table was set like a magazine spread. Candles, cloth napkins, 24 hand-folded place cards, each with a guest's name printed in gold ink like this was a state dinner instead of a suburban social flex. She wore a navy blue dress I hadn't seen in years. Said she found it in the back of the closet. I said she looked stunning. She did. But not for me. Guests trickled in. Melissa and Rob arrived first. Melissa hugged me a little longer than necessary and whispered, "You sure you're okay?" "Never better," I said. The Holtz showed up next. Mark in a blazer 2 sizes too big, his wife already 2 glasses in before her heels hit the welcome mat. We chatted. We laughed. We poured wine like nothing was wrong. Until 8:04 p.m., when the doorbell rang again. Jessica answered it, wine glass in hand. The smile on her face collapsed like a bad souffle. "Elliot," she said. He looked crisp, confident, wearing the infamous tan coat like a uniform. "Hey," he grinned. "Thanks for the invite." I didn't know you were coming." "Oh, Daniel emailed me. Said it was a friends of the family kind of thing." Jessica turned slowly. Her eyes landed on me across the room. I raised my glass. "Thought he might enjoy meeting everyone," I said. The air shifted immediately. You could feel it in the room like static before a lightning strike. Elliot mingled like he belonged there. Told charming stories. Smiled too wide. The guy was a walking PowerPoint presentation with veneers. Jessica tried to hold it together. But every time she looked at me, her eyes narrowed. She was trying to figure out what game I was playing. She didn't know I had already won. The real fun came at dinner. I seated everyone strategically. Elliot to my left. Jessica directly across from him. Melissa across from me, with a faint smirk that said, "Oh, I see what you did here." Halfway through the main course, someone asked, "How do you two know each other?" while gesturing at Jessica and Elliot. Jessica choked on her wine. Elliot glanced at her, then at me. "Oh, we go way back. Work friends." "Work friends," I echoed. "You guys seem close." Jessica forced a laugh. "We just collaborate on a lot of campaigns. Late nights and all." "Late nights," I repeated, nodding. "Those can build a strong bond." Melissa caught on immediately. Her eyes gleamed like polished daggers. Then, casually, beautifully, she said, "Jessica, didn't you say you ran into Elliot at that cafe? What was it called again? The one with the lattes and the chocolate tart." Jessica looked like she wanted to vanish under the table. Elliot, clueless, smiled. "Oh yeah, Elm and Ivy. Great spot." Silence. Thick, heavy silence. Jessica didn't speak. Couldn't. I didn't have to say a word. Her story was unraveling in real time, right there between the mashed potatoes and the roasted asparagus. After dessert, people started leaving. Except Melissa. She hung back in the kitchen while Jessica pretended to clean up. "Subtle," she whispered to me. "Devastating." "I'm impressed." I smiled. "It's only just begun." From the dining room, I could hear Jessica's voice, tight, controlled, like someone clenching their whole life between their teeth. "Why did you invite him?" I didn't answer. I walked past her, glass in hand, paused by the hallway, and looked over my shoulder. "You wanted a party," I said. "I just made it memorable." The next morning, the house smelled like something between scorched coffee and unfinished business. Jessica stood at the counter, staring into the French press like it owed her answers. Her hair was a mess. No makeup, no grace. Just a woman trying to patch a hole in a boat she swore wasn't sinking. "Want some?" she asked, without looking up. Sure, I said. Black. Like your Thursday evenings. She froze. Didn't flinch. Didn't breathe. But she froze. That's when I knew. The party had hit its target. Can we talk? She asked, finally turning around. Her voice was smaller now. Not her usual confident tone. The one she used when dismissing my questions or correcting the way I folded laundry. This one had an edge of uncertainty. I sat at the table, calm, curious, my coffee untouched. She joined me, fingers wrapped around her mug like it was a shield. Last night, she said, was a little cruel. Was it? I asked, stirring mine slowly. I thought it was festive. Great turnout. Loved the part where you almost passed out in the mashed potatoes. Her jaw clenched. What do you want me to say, Daniel? That's the fun part, I said. I don't want you to say anything. You've made your point. Oh no, I replied. I'm just getting started. She dropped the polite act about 6 sips in. Okay, fine, she said, setting her mug down harder than necessary. You're mad. I get it. I raised an eyebrow. Mad. She waved a hand. Hurt. Furious. Whatever. Just say it, so we can move on. Move on. Like this was a traffic ticket. Like she hadn't spent the last 4 months treating me like a hotel concierge while kissing Elliot Monroe behind bookstore dumpsters. What exactly are we moving on from, Jess? She looked at me, eyes wide, caught between indignation and desperation. That man, I continued. The one in the tan coat you accidentally invited to dinner. He's not just a co-worker, is he? She hesitated, and in that pause, her whole world tipped. No, she said quietly. He's not. There it was. The confession, thin and sickly, delivered like a bad appetizer. Are you in love with him? I asked. She laughed, bitter and fast. God, no. That stung more than I expected. Not because I wanted her to love him, but because she didn't. And she still chose him over me. He's exciting, she said, eyes dropping to her lap. He listens. He makes me feel seen. I sipped my coffee. You could have said the same about a dog. She winced. You think I planned this? She asked. You think I wanted things to get messy? No, I said. You wanted things to stay secret. Not the same thing. We sat in silence after that. She fidgeted with her wedding ring, slid it up and down her finger, slowly, rhythmically. You must hate me, she whispered. I don't, I replied. I understand you. That's worse. Her eyes snapped to mine. You were lonely, I said. Bored. You wanted to feel desirable again, but you didn't want to rebuild what we had. You just wanted to be wanted. Tears welled up. Real ones, maybe for the first time in a long time. You're not wrong, she admitted. I didn't say anything. Just stared at her like a painting I used to love, but couldn't hang up anymore. Do you want a divorce? She asked. I don't want anything, I said, standing. That's the difference between us. You want and want and want. I observe. I remember. I calculate. She opened her mouth to reply, but I was already halfway to the stairs. You're not the only one who can keep secrets, I added, over my shoulder. You'll see. That night, I made 3 phone calls. One to our accountant, one to a locksmith, and one to a man named Keith, a quiet, brilliant tech guy I'd met through a client. He builds systems for surveillance, home security, phone backups, GPS auditing, discreet stuff. We had lunch once. He told me, everyone leaves a trail. You just need to decide what kind of footprints you're looking for. Turns out, Jessica's phone had been auto-backing up to our shared cloud since day one. Photos, notes, texts, even the deleted ones. I spent the next 2 days in the guest room, sorting through digital debris, screenshots, hotel check-ins, playful photos at the lake, texts where she said, I think Daniel suspects something, but he's too passive to ever say it. That one was my favorite. I printed it out, taped it to the inside of my closet door. A trophy. Meanwhile, Jessica was unraveling. She burned rice, forgot meetings, woke up at 4 a.m. pacing the hallway like a ghost. She was waiting for the blow-up, but I didn't give it to her. No yelling, no threats, just polite distance and morning coffee with no eye contact. That's what broke her, not the confrontation, the absence. She kept trying to bait me. You're being weird. Can we talk? Do you even care? I just smiled and said, of course. Because the truth is, revenge isn't about rage. It's about timing. The plan was nearly ready. I just needed one more week. One more ordinary week where she thought the worst had passed, where she could convince herself the storm had blown over and the skies were clear. Let her relax. Let her breathe. Because the real storm wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from me. The house turned polite. Too polite. Jessica started overcorrecting, making my coffee, asking about my day, folding the laundry with military precision. It was all for show. A guilt-induced charade. And like every good performer, she didn't realize the curtain had already dropped. I let her think she was winning me back. I complimented her pasta. I kissed her forehead once. I even played along when she suggested a weekend away to reconnect. That sounds perfect, I said. And I meant it. But not for the reasons she hoped. I needed her comfortable. I needed her to trust that I was still in the dark. Meanwhile, my blueprint was unfolding like clockwork. Bank accounts had been quietly separated. I rerouted my paychecks to a different account. Transferred the deed of my grandfather's cabin out of our joint trust. Got legal consultations with 2 attorneys, just in case. And I bought something. A simple manila envelope. Inside it, photos, texts, receipts, backup logs, GPS records, even a short handwritten letter titled, "In case she spins it." We took the weekend trip. She picked a quiet Airbnb near the lake. Said it reminded her of our early years. The cabin had creaky floors, dusty board games, and one of those fireplaces that never quite works right. Romantic, if you're into nostalgia laced with lies. She made us dinner the first night, grilled salmon, candles, a bottle of wine she claimed to stumble on in town. We sat across from each other, the flicker of the flame bouncing off the glass. To second chances, she said. I raised my glass. To closure. She didn't notice the word. Later, by the fire, she leaned against me like she used to. I let her. Her head on my chest. Her hand on my arm. The same hand that used to text Elliot under the covers. You've been different lately, she said. Yeah, I replied. Things change. She tilted her head, looking up at me. You've forgiven me, haven't you? I smiled. That smile must have chilled her. Because she pulled back, just slightly. You have, right? She asked again. I kissed her forehead. I have everything I need. The day we returned, she went to work like normal. At 9:06 a.m., the movers arrived. By 10:30, the house was stripped clean of everything that was mine. Furniture, books, art, the tools I never let her touch, the chair she hated but always sat in when she was sad. Gone. By 11 a.m., the locks were changed. At 11:12, I dropped off the manila envelope at her office with a note clipped to the front. You'll want to read this at home. Alone. And I left. Not just the house, but the version of me that tolerated her betrayal like it was a phase. At 3:34 p.m., she called me 12 times in a row. I didn't answer. At 4:11, she texted, "Where is everything?" At 4:12, "What did you do?" At 4:13, "We can talk about this." No, Jessica. We already did. I watched from a distance as she arrived home that evening. She stood in the driveway, frozen, then sprinted inside like she could rewind the clock. She couldn't. Inside, she found a house that had been scrubbed of my presence. Walls bare, closets empty. Every coffee mug, every hoodie, every note I'd ever left her gone. Just a stack of papers on the counter waiting for her. Not a letter of rage. A timeline. A list of dates. A folder of proof. A calm, factual dissection of her double life. At the bottom of the final page. You made your choice. I made mine. You taught me what betrayal looks like. I just returned the lesson with better handwriting. She tried to spin the story. Called mutual friends. Told them I'd abandoned her. That I was emotionally distant and had retreated into myself. But the envelope did the work. Every lie she floated hit a wall of evidence thicker than her concealer. People didn't pity her. They avoided her. I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne, no fist pump in the mirror. I just walked into my new place, placed the one framed photo I'd taken from the house, our wedding picture, folded in half, onto the mantel. One side showed me. The other? Turned to the wall. She thought she'd broken me. What she never understood was, I wasn't trying to win her back. I was just waiting for the perfect moment to walk away and make sure she'd never forget it.